I had to spend some time explaining the assignment. I will
No,
stop
it's no
sharing,
worries.
so all yours now.
Thank you very much. I'll just turn the camera on. Let's see if that's the right one. Let me know if you can see the screen.
It's coming up, all good. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Today I'll be talking about the cyber algorithm that changed the world and the perception of the Internet of Things, Mirai. Innovation is just creativity applied with technology. I start pretty much all of my lectures with this quote, and I found it really encouraging when I looked up the unit syllabus for this unit, and I saw that under graduate capabilities, creativity and innovation were both listed. I think it's really important to highlight how vital innovation is in the cyber realm, because naturally malicious cyber algorithms will continually be explored and advanced. So it's up to you guys, the future cybersecurity experts, to be creative and innovate new defensive measures. But hello, everybody. My name is Josh. I'm the National Practice Lead for the Internet of Things and Digital Twins at Modulus. I'm a Senior Technical and Solutions Architect, and I primarily work in Internet of Things, Digital Twins, Cloud, Data, Smart Industry, Emerging Tech, and Cybersecurity. Today, I'll be talking about the Internet of Things, botnets, and of course, Mirai itself. So firstly, what is the Internet of Things? I guarantee everyone here has either possesses a smart device themselves, or they've come into close proximity with one, even if you may not have realized that you have. A common misconception about the Internet of Things is its scale, but also its application. It's very common to hear opinions about IoT held in a very negative light. People refer to it as like the Internet of shit and talk about smart toasters and other really debatable applications that don't realize a whole lot of value. But these comments are generally made by people who don't really understand that the Internet of Things is so much more than a smart coffee machine that's hooked up to your bash terminal, which is a real thing. And this is because it's really hard to nail down a definition. Malforming one that I found on Wikipedia to be a little bit more accurate, I like to describe the Internet of Things as a network of physical things that are attached with sensors, software, and other technology for the purpose of collecting and communicating data with other devices and systems. Something that some people find interesting is that I refer to the things as the entity itself and not the sensor. For example, a truck is a thing, and you use actuators and sensors and system integration to gather data about that thing. But I'm not actually the person to conceptualize this. It was a guy called Kevin Ashton from MIT. Kevin stated, if we had computers that knew everything there was to know about things, using data they gathered without any help from us, we would be able to track and count everything and greatly reduce waste, loss, and cost. We would know when things needed replacing, repairing, or recalling, and whether they were fresh or past their best. The Internet of Things has the potential to change the world, just as the Internet did, maybe even more so. That actually is when the term Internet of Things was coined, all the way back in 1999. And you can see that Kev described the things as the objects in daily life that are equipped with technology to gather insights. And gather insights we do. Another thing people outside the field don't really realize is that the Internet of Things isn't a bubble, using the example of the blockchain bubble in 2018. Note that I'm not referring to cryptocurrencies or the genuine applications of blockchain. Just the idea that it will significantly change every aspect of your daily life. It's not, and it's also not a small thing that, maybe a couple of more innovative places are experimenting with. It's already here and it's pretty big. We're talking 15 billion connected devices big. That's more than 5 times the number of devices that Java has somehow been running for the last 23 years without change. But 15 billion is a huge number. We have more active device connections worldwide from IoT devices than from non-IoT devices, according to Statistica. They demonstrate in the chart on the right that there are more IoT devices currently connected than there are desktops, tablets, laptops, and mobile phones combined. By 2025, we're expecting 152,000 new devices connecting to the internet every minute. 152,000 new devices per minute in 2025. And the amount of data generated by IoT devices is expected to reach 73 zettabytes, which is equivalent to 73 trillion gigs. For reference, in 2018, IDC estimated the global data sphere had reached 18 zettabytes. And they also estimate that the global data sphere, this is all the data that's generated on an annual basis, will be around 175 zettabytes in 2025. So out of 175 zettabytes in 2025, 75 of those will be coming from the Internet of Things itself. So needless to say, it is here and it is big. But where are all these devices? Obviously, there's the consumer side. We know about smart lights, virtual assistant speakers and screens, smart locks. There are smart coffee machines, smart toasters, all that kind of stuff. Consumer IoT currently makes up around 55% of all IoT devices, which is around 8 billion. So what about the other 7 billion that aren't smart fridges and toasters? IoT is being actively used to improve the standard of life and help stop unnecessary deaths all around the world. It's used in sustainability, environment, and agriculture, where it's helping farmers grow the same yield, but for 40% less water and fertilizer usage. That's not even touching on smart farms, hydroponics, vertical farming technologies, all enabled by the Internet of Things. Biometric devices are being used for detection in healthcare, for everything from breast cancer detection through a smart bra to non-invasive biometric monitoring, as well as fall detection in places like aged homes. The Internet of Things is being used by governments and councils around the world to get a deeper understanding of the pollution of air and water, to try and minimize the 9 million deaths seen a year due to pollution. It's also inevitably going to be used by companies around the world to optimize operations. And in the process, the commercial space is realizing tens of trillions in values, in additional value, thanks to the Internet of Things. So you can see when someone criticizes IoT or calls it the Internet of Shit, it's like somebody talking about how electric vehicle takeoff aircraft are trash because they were having problems with their $15 Alibaba drone. So now we get on to botnets. What is a botnet? Well, the word's origin are a portmanteau of robot and network. And that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Doesn't need much more explanation than that. Now, some history of DDoS attacks pre-2016. No, I'm just messing with everyone. When I used to work as a lecturer, I regularly liked to mess with my students, and I couldn't resist because it's been a while. So a botnet is an orchestrated network of internet-connected devices that are running malicious services that allow them to be controlled remotely by what's referred to as a command and control service, or a CNC. Botnets can be comprised of huge numbers of devices, with some of them being well into the millions of devices infected. And when you think about that consolidated compute power of millions of devices, that represents an enormous amount of power. Botnet members themselves are devices that have been breached by malware and have that malicious service installed. It allows the command and control software to activate and call upon it to perform some tasks. These can be things like a distributed denial of service, stealing data, sending spam, or propagating from that point through the network. Effectively, the device is breached, sleeper malware is installed, and then the sleeper is activated to do your bidding when you need it. Or here's an analogy if you need one. Because botnets are comprised of so many different devices, they're extremely effective at performing DDoS attacks. And a DDoS itself is a type of denial of service attack, which means that the aim of the attack is to deny service to something, typically done by overwhelming with fake traffic. And this denial of service is conducted by distributed sources. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Cloudflare uses the image at the bottom to represent a DDoS attack. If you can imagine, those blue cars are genuine users trying to access the service, in this case, a road. And the red cars are traffic that is flooding the road so that the blue users can't gain access, effectively denying them service. The first documented DDoS attack was in 1996, where the SYN flood technique was used to overwhelm Panics, an internet service provider. Prior to 2016, some of the largest DDoS attacks by volume were the Spam House, which got hit by 309 gigabits per second of traffic. 2014, the Arbor network reported a 500 gigabit per second attack, and the Occupy Central movement in Hong Kong attack, which in 2015 saw 500 gigabits of traffic generated, slamming them per second. That's quite a lot when you think about it, 500 gigs of traffic per second. But then came Mirai. Up until the point in 2016, and even now, some people thought that IoT was insignificant in terms of processing and compute power. But once again, when you have millions of devices combined together, that's huge. Mirai is a malware that targets network devices running Linux, but it primarily goes after consumer IoT devices. Some examples are cameras and home routers. Mirai effectively created a botnet from insecure IoT devices. And in 2016, the Mirai botnet launched a DDoS attack that targeted DIN, which is a major domain name service or DNS provider. This was the largest DDoS attack the world had ever seen, and it was primarily sourced from IoT devices. This IoT botnet successfully denied service to huge websites, including Spotify, Reddit, and Twitter. And at its peak, it was hammering DIN with 1.2 terabits of data. I think my graphics are wrong. So when you think about that, that's over double the highest bit rate of the previous large attack, 1.2 terabits of data per second. Even now, 5 years later, it's remains the 5th largest DDoS attack in history when you look at the peak bit rates. That is some insane destructive power sourced primarily from IoT devices. So the Mirai algorithm changed the world, and the new perception of IoT started to form in industry and in the aftermath of the DIN attack. There were a few lessons that people learned. The first was IoT is very powerful and very useful, but it's potentially very dangerous. With the huge power that IoT has, DDoS protection needed to advance, and single points of failure, such as a DNS, needed to be better hardened to be able to account for these attacks. And finally, attacks on huge companies have huge commercial implications, even though the attacks aren't those companies' fault. Prior to the attack, DIN was the DNS provider for around 10% of web traffic in the US. Due to that attack, they lost a quarter of their customers in a couple of months. Think about that. That has got to hurt, even though the attack wasn't their fault. So even though the Mirai algorithm changed the world, there are still issues that we face. Poor consumer behaviors is one, and I don't think that's going anywhere. Some of the more astute of you will have noticed when I mentioned the Mirai botnet is primarily comprised of, I said, consumer IoT devices. It's because a disappointing majority of consumers don't abide by best practices in terms of cybersecurity. The next one is that there are still so many uneducated but loudly vocal people that spew stuff about IoT. I tell you what, people would think I'm psychic by how accurate I can profile someone on, say, a Facebook group, developer Facebook group, when they start bashing IoT, because it comes down to generally one of two people. There's the junior developer or uni student who's never really worked with a real IoT, and that's not having a go at anyone here. You're all at the beginning of your journey, and as cybersecurity focused students, each and every one of you will have a vital role to play in making the world of tomorrow a safe place. Because unsecure IoT is dangerous, and that's been proven time and time again. But the reality of the world that we live in is it will be everywhere. You're going to have implanted in your brain, or there's already smart pacemakers. So it's going to be inside people. They're going to be everywhere. But the second type, which is quite funny, is the functional language only Linux developer who spent 30 years coding in assembly and has a zero online presence because big tech is going to harvest your soul for profit. I say that facetiously. It's not actually that far off the truth. I think most of us will know that. But these people are really afraid of change, and they hate IoT for what it represents, which is a new, different, connected world. So that final point is to embrace IoT and to take it seriously. Last week, I was in the emergency department after having what seemed like heart attack symptoms. And as part of that, they strapped me up to an ECG machine, electrocardiogram, which involved around 9 wires being stuck to electrodes, which were stuck to different parts of my body. It was a whole nest of different cables. And I know for a fact, because I've worked with the tech, that there are real-time biometric wearables that are a small module that you just put on the upper part of a person's arm. And it provides you with the same amount of rich data. It actually provides you with more data at a higher rate. But we need people to embrace the technology rather than being resistive to change. And in order to get to the world where we are using all this technology, we need innovators. And Modus, which is the company that I work for, in case you haven't heard of Modus, we have 30,000 employees worldwide in 20 countries. We're actually in the works of a merger with Akka Technologies, which when completed will result in us being 55,000 employees and will be the second largest engineering R&D company in the world. Australian Financial Review has listed us as one of Australia's most innovative companies. And globally, we deal with everything from the engineering itself to technology solutions. We have Modus Academy for training, innovation labs, project management, business consulting. As far as Australia goes, we have 1,200 people here from project managers, architects, business analysts, cybersecurity specialists. And that's the very abrupt end of the speech. So this is the slide credits for the slides that I use for pretty much everything. Thank you for your time and attention. I think we're right on the dot, but I'm not sure if anyone wants to ask any questions. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Thanks, Josh. Guys, question from your side.
Thank you, whoever pointed out the Microsoft one.
Yeah, I was about to ask, so when it comes to DDoS attacks, is there any way of really preventing them? Or in this case, when Microsoft mitigated it, do you have any idea what might have been their strategy or how they prevented all that traffic?
It's really great. It's traditionally been extremely difficult because if you can imagine doing things like routing the traffic to DevNull or a black hole or something, they're succeeding in the attack because you're denying service. You're routing what could be genuine traffic out and denying service to them. So it's traditionally been very difficult. I know there's heaps of mitigation techniques you'll be able to Google. But some of the really cool ones recently have been embracing different types of neural networks to learn from kind of the shape of the traffic. I imagine Microsoft, all of the big cloud providers would probably be investing quite heavily in techniques like that. I don't know the details myself, and I probably don't have time, even if I did, but definitely check it out.
Thanks for that.
Any question? Any other question, guys? Otherwise, I will have a question, Josh. So since it's about the IoT, right? So IoT, people are not happy to share the data. So federated learning is one option you can use. So have you come across that sort of, people already implemented federated learning for this sort of reducing this in IoT attacks or that sort of things?
Yeah, a really cool use case that I can speak to, but I'll have to anonymize it, is a project I worked on around mine safety. And it's won multiple awards. Satya Nadella from Microsoft had a call with the project team to congratulate what it's working towards. And effectively, the idea is that currently on mine sites, when they're conducting maintenance, you can imagine you've got a 40-ton truck or a digger or something like that. And the maintenance, they're not going to stop production for maintenance because they would lose immense amounts of money. So the maintenance guys have to go up, climb onto the vehicle while it's in operation effectively, plug into it and diagnose what's wrong with it. So the technology that was developed is making that all of that data plus more by attaching additional sensors available from 80 meters away at current stage, and then eventually they will be routed over a mesh network into the cloud and made available entirely remotely. So it meant that maintainers could access this all of the diagnostic data as well as additional data from 100 meters away, 80 meters away, and they didn't have to get within what's called the exclusion zone, the danger zone. An example of that is because you have like engine manufacturers, you also have onboard device. The truck itself might be from a different company. There's 4 or 5 different companies involved with these huge pieces of mining equipment. And the great thing about this project is the project manager is really driving the collaboration between all of those different companies, sharing the data in order to be able to realize value and insights. So that's an example that I can think of. It's definitely a really sensitive topic. Healthcare is huge. People are very hesitant to share that kind of data, but anonymized and then aggregated, it's insane what could potentially be done when you can start looking at neural networks as a means for analyzing it.
Thank you, Josh.
No worries.
Any other question, guys? Otherwise, seems no. Thank you very much, guys. It's a very informative, it's very useful information. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll catch you soon.
See you. See ya. All right, guys. End of